Hi people, it's Sarkovist here, and today I'm going to be talking about a few of the games that have impressed me so far this E3. But as a quick aside, I just want to say with regards to the Microsoft press conference, I really think they went in the right direction this year. For so long they were on something of a slippery slope, moving away from actual gaming content and towards the peripheral gimmicks, things like the TV features, the Kinect features, but this year they actually went for the games, which is what people watch E3 for primarily. I think they were trying to entertain before, but now they really understand that people are here for the info. They want juicy information. They want the games. And I really hope they continue to do this, because it was very impressive and I found it to be a far more captivating press conference overall. But with that said, let's move on to the games that have impressed me. So the first game that really impressed me was Fable Legends. When I first saw it, I thought, wow, this is definitely a Fable game, the art style's there, but it looks improved, and you'd expect that from next gen. This is a real improvement. This is, if someone said, what does a Fable next gen game look like, I'd say, yes, it looks something like this. They haven't, and I had a fear that a game like this would become this. I was really afraid it would be realistic. I thought they'd say, we have next gen tech now. Let's do away with that silly, simplistic art style we had before, do something new. No, they've got the same art style, but the textures look more complex, the environment is more detailed. It looks awesome. I can't speak for on a technical level, but from an art style perspective alone, it looks very nice, very good indeed. Reminiscent of the past games, but a certain improvement. Now to the gameplay. The gameplay looks... Actually, I'd say that looks very different to what we've had in past games. If you remember before, it was basically one combat type had one button. Melee was X and all melee was X, all shooting was Y, and all mage-based abilities, magical-based abilities were B. And basically that meant if you wanted to specialise, as many people did, you would basically spend the game mashing one button. But because it looks like now they've given each class like it's a dedicated class, it's not just a path you can take. I'm hoping now it will make use of more buttons for each class. Also, the co-op in the game looks more cohesive than it has been in the past. In, say, Fable 3 and Fable 2, it was nice to play co-op, but essentially it just meant there was another player on the screen doing more damage. Here it looks more dynamic, so where the mage will freeze someone in place, the warrior or the ranger will smash them to pieces. So there's actually an element of them working off each other's weaknesses and strengths, and that's probably going to make co-op a lot more fun and a lot more team oriented than it was before. They also showed this dungeon keeper inspired villain aspect to the game, so the heroes come and invade your dungeon and you have to set traps and spring up AI to come and attack them. The thing about this is it could go either way. It could be an excellent way of shaking the game up, or it could go horribly wrong and be really open to abuse. I've got a fear that will happen, but let's wait until the game comes out to make a firm judgment on this mechanic. The animations and the spell effects, they looked very good. The roguish character, the way he swiped his sword looked very cool. And the ice in particular, you very rarely see ice being done well in a video game. You've got this idea that it's just got to be some blue magic-y stuff. But here it looked like actual ice. It had that glimmer to it. It was dense in the middle, and as it was beginning to melt, it looked more sparse, so you could see through it. I'm really hoping that is how it will remain in the final product. I hope that's not something that drains the CPU and I have to reduce, because I don't think we've had too many games yet where the mage has had some awesome spell effects and an awesome array of magical abilities. So Fable Legends looked very promising to me, familiar yet improved. We also got a good look at Far Cry 4. I don't think anyone would have been surprised by what we saw. It was essentially Far Cry 3 but set in a Himalayan area. It's a fictional place called, I think it's Kyrat or something. There's a great walkthrough where they explain a lot of what they're putting in the environment. I believe actually the footage you're seeing now is from the PS4 version, which is very impressive. I mean, look at it from a technical perspective, especially things like the mist, the textures. There's certain explosions that create a lot of physics going off around. It's a very impressive looking game. And I was thinking, wait a second, are we being scammed again? Is this another case where they're using like a developer's kit to show us what the game would ideally look like but won't end up looking like? And I've noticed there was a bit about here where there's a bit of pop-in. And I'm not actually being negative when I say this. What this makes me think is, okay, I've seen an imperfection. Why would they leave that imperfection in if they wanted to show the game at its best? I mean, that's not no one likes popping. And I'm wondering, well, that might be a good indicator, because that shows that this very well could be an authentic showing of the PS4 version of the game. There was also another little bit of footage which showed the main villain of the game. He seems very eccentric, which is excellent, because in the past Far Cry game, I've completely forgotten the dude's name, but he was basically a psychopath. He was definitely the most memorable aspect of the game. I say that even though I can't remember his name, but his personality really shone through, so they seem like they've noticed that was a strong point of the last game. They said, let's make another Nemesis who's really, really crazy, off the hinge mad. Although I hope they don't end up killing him off halfway through the game. I want this guy to be persistent. Also, there's a nice amount of tension, you know, when you see them in the bus, everyone's panicking and everyone's getting shot and you're the only one alive. If I had to pick out any negative though about this, it's that they implied that they've replaced the longbow with a crossbow. Now, it's still a stealth weapon, it's going to work very similarly. They say it's more about short range though, but it gives rapid fire instead. I really hope they haven't actually replaced it, because the longbow was the most fun thing to use in Far Cry 3, so it'd be a real shame if they got rid of it. I'm hoping they're going to use both in the end, they'll both be an option. And the final trailer that stood out to me was the Assassin's Creed Unity co-op trailer. The first part of the trailer that struck me was the way you can now dismount from walls. Before, you had to awkwardly either spring straight or forward, it would throw you a ridiculous distance and sometimes kill you, or you had to just drop lamely like a duck. Now you can do this cool backflip and just land on the ground, and it looks like it's a far more convenient way of getting down from ledges. Although it seems like a small thing, I reckon that when it actually comes to playing the game, seeing as climbing is such an important part of the Assassin's Creed games, it will make a genuine difference. Another thing was the size of the crowds. God, I mean, I know we've always had big crowds in the Assassin's Creed games, but just off the top of my head, I can't remember a crowd being this big. So that looks like an improvement that's come about. And of course, it's a co-op trailer, so you see one of your teammates spring in. I don't know how much use being in co-op will be, because there's two ways you can go about making a co-op experience. You can either just make it that the game is more difficult and having more people makes it easier, that's one way, or you can make it that you really do have to work together to overcome something, so you literally couldn't do a certain task without someone else's help. For the most part, I think they may have gone with the former, but this is only one particular mission, so they could have easily in later stages made it so you actually need two people. But it does look fun too, and it looks like you can tackle things much faster, because before, if you wanted to create a distraction, you might have had to go away and find some people and pay them. Here you can just say, hey you, Barry, go distract that guard and run off, and then you continue with the main mission. So it will probably actually make the game much faster to play through. And that was actually a sense I got from this. It was a very fast-paced trailer. Another thing, I guess this is something already new, but the time period presents a sort of scenario where you're almost more justified in your actions, because in Assassin's Creed Black Flag, it almost felt like you were just killing people because you were an assassin. You know, they had to find corrupt people for you to kill. But this is a period in time where there really were people that could have done with assassinating. And so when you actually finally kill the Marquis, you push him out a window and you throw him to the ground and he gets beheaded and punched. And it really makes you feel like you've properly killed this guy, you've really done him in. Because sometimes when I've been playing Assassin's Creed games, just stabbing them in the back, it just feels a little insignificant. I mean, you've been doing that to all the guards on the way there, and you just do it in the same way to the final target. So here you can kill him in a slightly more... it's almost poetic, you know. He says, oh, they're only peasants, but then those people who are only peasants manage to beat the hell out of you. So it's a more satisfying reward if you're into that. So Assassin's Creed Unity, surprisingly, because I thought this was a series that could eventually succumb to fatigue, and hey, the game hasn't come out yet, it could do that, but it looks fairly fresh. It looks like they've added a few cool new ideas. Very nice looking trailer, great graphics, familiar gameplay with some slightly new elements, and the co-op looks fun. These were my first impressions of some of the games we've seen at E3. As always people, thanks very much for watching, and see you next time.